All right, back again on the Fantasy Football Podcast 2016. Doing a little draft review. Obviously, I know the early season podcasts are always the worst as far as quality goes because there's not really too much to talk about, and everything is entirely speculative. But got to start with the draft and then keep things going as the season goes on. So, I'll basically run through the keepers briefly, talk a little bit about some of the better ones, some of the worst ones there, and then do some draft winners and draft losers. But, for starters, let me just say I think we're all draft winners, and we're all league winners, as a matter of fact. It was obviously evident in the draft on Saturday that this league is going in a new direction. We got some new faces. We got Les Plotzker. Things are going great. So, let's just keep things running, and hopefully everyone has paid their dues and won't rage quit midway through the season. All right, so starting with the keepers, some of the good ones. I liked what I saw from some of the new guys. Carlson keeping Brandon Marshall for $22 I thought was a good deal. Dan keeping Eric Decker, the Jets bookends there for $12 I thought was pretty solid. Obviously, I liked myself keeping Bortles on a 2-year deal for $30. I think he's, probably the greatest quarterback of all time, and I mean that with no hyperbole. And then lastly, Ariel. How could you dislike Ariel's triplets? His 3 first-round quality wide receivers in Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, and Allen Robinson that he got for a total of $73, which is, about the price of one first-round receiver. So that was some nice wheeling and dealing by Ariel there. As far as some of the bad on the keepers, I mean, there's only really so much you can say as far as bad keepers. I mean, there's, you'd think that the process of just evaluating and keeping players would eliminate any of the bad players, but it's not really more about the price people are paying. I would say the only one that kind of sticks out to me really is Ben keeping Russell Wilson for $103. I know quarterbacks are obviously valued at a premium in our league, but to me, when you see guys like Matt Stafford going for $63 or Matt Ryan going for $39 or Drew Brees going for $77 or even Flacco going for $34, 103 for Russell Wilson just seems like an exorbitant amount, and I feel like Ben could have probably gotten a better deal if he would have just let him get back on the open market. He probably would have gotten him for somewhere closer to about 90. Obviously Wilson is a good quarterback, so there's really only so much you can dislike that. A move that's obvious to dislike that has no argument is Billy just totally forgetting that he had the rights to Kelvin Benjamin for $15 when he went on to be drafted for $29 in the draft. So excellent work there, Billy. Year's off to a great start. All right, looking at the draft specifically, some of the teams, some of the owners who I thought were draft winners, guys who had an excellent draft. Ariel, for starters, as I mentioned previously, had 3 great keepers. He went out and got Aaron Rodgers early, who, as much as I dislike and question his heterosexuality, is a great fantasy quarterback. Also had some strong running backs in Thomas Rawls, and I think Melvin Gordon is probably going to have a pretty good year. He's sort of the unquestioned guy there. And then lastly, got some good sleepers. He's got Tajay Sharp. He got Jimmy Graham for $1, which could be a total steal. So I thought Ariel did a great job. And that's even if he was dressed business casual for the day. Also, draft winner, new guy, Dan, coworker Dan. Thought he did pretty solid. He definitely got great value on Stafford and Matt Ryan as far as starting quarterback duos go. Pretty good value there. He also got some strong running backs, despite Frank Gore, who we all had a good laugh at. But he's got David Johnson, and then more importantly on his bench, he's got Chris Ivory and Kristen Michael. D'Angelo Williams should have a strong first couple of games. So he's got some solid ammo there. And then also, he got some solid sleeper potential. He got both Dante Moncrief and Philip Dorsett, who a lot of people like as sleepers this year. So, probably you'd have to imagine at least one of those guys will break out. Lastly, draft winner, Andrew Smith. I thought Smith did a great job getting Roethlisberger for a good price early. He got Alex Smith, and he even called his shot by wearing that shirt. And then you got Eddie Lacy, who, when he isn't busy trying to see how many chicken nuggets he can fit in his mouth at one time, is a pretty good running back. And a guy I really like that Smith got is Kamar Aiken. He's, one of those sort of boring but productive kind of guys. But really the reason why I have Smith down as a draft winner is not so much that he got great value and got great players. It was more so that he bilked all of you idiots into letting him just jump the fab order and just, pick up 4 players. And I understand the argument of, oh, well, he could have just sat there and waited any of the money and the draft spots. And I get that. But the key part that you're all missing out is the actual sitting. We all had to sit there. I had to sit there. I had Bootsy's dog trying to steal my chips every time I opened the bag. But, that's just what we had to deal with. And so Smith got to skate scot-free and waltz up to Evanston and go to a wedding. Well, he, then texted in the rest of his draft. So next year, I'm just going to say, well, I could have sat there, but, I'm just going to text in my draft early. That's why Smith is a winner. All right, now the more important and highly less researched part, the draft losers. For starters, and I don't mean this to come off rude because I do appreciate how graciously he hosted us, but frankly, I thought Bootsy was a bit of a draft loser. He's certainly not a real estate loser, as his place is the size of an airplane hangar, and he, is doing great in that regard. But I thought his draft was a little too speculative. He went out and drafted Brock Osweiler and Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starting quarterbacks. And, obviously it's a good thing he got Dak Shepard. I made sure to do everything I could to remedy that situation early. But he also got Golden Tate, who, it'll remains to be seen how good he's going to be without Calvin Johnson there. And the same is true about CJ Anderson. I mean, he's, you never know quite what the hell's going to go on with the Broncos running back situation. Sterling Shepard, I know, is a guy who's gotten a lot of hype in the preseason, but, hasn't really proved it quite yet. So, like I said, good thing he's got Dak Shepard, who is, odds-on favorite for champion of the universe this early. Another draft loser, and I feel comfortable sort of pre-penning his name into this slot every year, is Andrew Oakes. This is sort of your classic Oakes draft, just typical Oakes picks. Well, he wasn't, busy pretending like he was driving by Alcatraz, of which I didn't see any proof, and frankly, I'm not positive that he actually lives on the West Coast. But he, started with some good keepers with Eli and Jameis Winston and Gurley, and then the rest of his draft, as I mentioned, was just sort of your classic Oaks, getting guys like Derrick Henry and Travis Benjamin and Kevin White, Ladarius Green, Devontae Booker. I mean, these are long shots in the dark for sure. The only other kind of big name guy he spent some money on was Tom Brady, who obviously I think we all know Brady's pretty solid, but quarterback wasn't really an area of that much need for Andy. So I thought he did a terrible job and should be ashamed of himself. Lastly, draft loser, Schaefer. Schaefer, honestly, I don't think you're a loser necessarily because of the players that you drafted. I think you actually did a pretty good job. You got Ezekiel Elliott, who, when the Romo news broke, some people may argue makes him even more valuable. You got Le'Veon Bell, who I think the 3-game suspension isn't really going to be that big of a deal. You got Jeremy Maclin, who is a really solid producer. Will Fuller is a rookie that people feel good about. You got Gronk. You actually have a pretty good team. But the reason I have you on my losers list here is because you are the first person to ever break out the strategy of selling out before the draft starts. And I understand you have the clown exemption, and apparently that's gone to your head. But, coming in last is still nothing to be proud of. And so, the fact that you have wasted roster slots on future guys like Brad Kaya or Leonard Fournette, also have some people named Josh Dotson or CJ Prosise, who the internet tells me they're in the NFL, but as far as I'm concerned, they are still college students that you have rostered here. Seeing that strategy, it just means you can't be a winner for this year. So that's fine. I mean, I definitely respect the new approach from you, and it's impressive that you are that confident in the clown exemption. But we still will find a way to humiliate you when you come in last. All right, so that's pretty much it for the podcast for this week. I'm going to stop recording now, and I actually have another draft coming up, which I know I'm not supposed to talk about, but it's an auction draft with Pearlstein and Horvey and all those idiots. And so it's always nice to have those drafts after our draft because I feel like I've properly sharpened my teeth. The only problem is I'm going to be sober during this one and sober afterwards, and so I can't trade away all of my high-value picks. All right, thanks for listening. See you in a couple weeks.